welcome to Digital Banking Work in Progress, an interview series where we discuss the various complications of transforming banks to digital. In today's episode, I'm joined by Nuwan Bandara, who leads Financial Services FinTech Group at AWS. Nuwan has close to 20 years of experience in helping enterprises architect their digital transformations, and I think it's safe to say that he has helped financial institutions of all sizes and types in multiple regions on their digital journeys. And today, we hope to have a chat about a topic that's very important but less discussed, which is the ROI of Gen AI investments in financial services. Good morning, Nuwan.
Good morning, Sashika. Thanks. Thank you for having me in your podcast.
Well, it's my pleasure. Now, Nuwan, I've known you for a long time, and I am quite aware of the contributions you've made towards many large technology projects. But could you share with us what type of work you've been doing in the Gen AI space within financial services?
Yeah, absolutely. To give a little bit of background about my work and my role at Amazon Web Services is that I lead the US East FinTech Solutions Architecture Group for Amazon Web Services. And this means basically myself and my team works with some of the largest financial institutions in United States who are digitally native. So that is a specific differentiation that I need to make. These companies that my team and myself work are born in the cloud financial services companies. So some of the household names are like, Coinbase or Robinhood or Rocket Mortgage, kind of large financial institutions. So these companies are in groups such as, banking and lending, capital markets, wealth tech, and, insurance tech, etc. We work with these organizations to, build their financial platforms, help them with their security and regulatory concerns, and build the platforms accordingly. And sometimes build these innovate with them on some of these newer technologies. And right now, what we are, whole world is taken up by a storm with generative AI and AI/ML. And these companies are not new to those technologies. So my team and myself, innovate with them in order to gain the ROI and have the right impact for their customers.
Fantastic. Because what I was thinking about for today's conversation is the thing that you mentioned, that I think it's been maybe about 2 years since generative AI became freely available to the public, and the world has changed since then, right? And we see many banks taking a leap towards absorbing and getting generative AI into their technology projects. But I think the type of banks that you've been working with, who are more, I would say, digital, as you said, digitally native, are probably sort of leading that journey in terms of making investments into generative AI. So it'll be really cool to understand what they've tried, what has worked, what hasn't. So let's start from there. Could you share with us what are some of the easier use cases that banks have started with when it comes to generative AI that doesn't require so much investment, but perhaps you can see some quick wins through?
Yeah. And like we talked about earlier, right? Like these financial institutions that I've been working with have been, putting workloads into production with traditional AI/ML for, better part of last 10 years, right? For areas like credit risk analysis or fraud detection and fraud investigation, anti-money laundering kind of domains, they've been using machine learning models for a very long time. With generative AI and the generative AI capabilities have been used in a very rapid form that I've seen is intelligent document processing kind of space, right? And you probably know this, right? Intelligent document processing predates generative AI, where you have this OCR kind of optical, image recognition kind of technologies, where you extract a document, the information of a document, like let's say
Yeah.
a mortgage application. You extract all the information and put it into a system. That is like a very rudimentary
Not very
forms of,
intelligent.
yeah, it's rudimentary forms of populating a form. But when I see the advancement, and when you see like the generative AI capabilities getting mixed into this OCR way of doing things, is that you get a loan packet now for an organization like a mortgage company. It extracts out, but also Gen AI can tell, okay, which areas that's not filled properly, or what more information that the customer needs to provide in
Mm.
order to give better credit assessments, right? So
Mm.
that's where, even before it goes to a banking agent or a credit assessment agent, a Gen AI agent will scan through the loan document and tell the customer, hey, by the way, you need to provide your income verification. You need to provide your, banking history in order to get this loan packet approved with,
Mm.
proper credit assessments. So those are like quick wins that I have seen, like very easy to implement. A
Yeah.
lot of these digital banks and digital lenders have implemented this within, 4 to 6 months kind of time frame, and went to
Oh.
production with it. And right now, what I've seen is some of these lenders in subprime lending kind of spaces, uh, there's no human agent at all. Like the customers apply for the loan, and they get a approval within a couple of minutes kind of time frame. So that's where I've
I was
seen like the best, quickest use cases.
I was just going to say that it probably removes several interactions between a human agent
Yeah.
and the customer, but looks like it's eliminating the need for that altogether, right?
Yeah. It also creates a new way of using these intelligent human agents in this workflow, where humans can actually do things like data labeling that will help the Gen AI to learn more in these edge
Mm.
cases, right? It's not just you remove the human workflow, but you utilize the human workflow in a new way, so they are
Mm.
much more productive, and then
Yeah.
output can be much more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole point of AI in general, right? To
Absolutely.
make sure that you kind of route the human, the scarce resource of human
Yeah.
intelligence to really do intelligent and creative things.
Yeah, absolutely. In Amazon, we call this. There's a term called undifferentiated heavy lifting. So we don't want the intelligent humans to do things that doesn't differentiate them,
Oh,
right? So
right, right.
all the undifferentiated heavy lifting will be done by Gen AI agents, and the humans will do the intelligent things that they are intended to do.
It's a big word, but it makes sense. Okay, Nuwan. So that's a really cool use case that banks and lenders can start with easily. Um, Can you also show us the other side of the coin where, some of the more profitable use cases, even if it means a longer time to realize the ROI? And perhaps these may be the projects that put pressure on, streamlining existing infrastructure, but are
Yeah.
hopefully worth it in the longer run.
Yeah, absolutely. So when myself and my team work with our customers, we try to categorize some of these use cases into like five broad categories.
Okay.
One of I'll go through those five categories, and then we'll talk about some of the use cases. Like use experience is one of those broader categories where you can do a lot of innovation with Gen AI.
Mm.
Then comes like middle office optimization and back office
Mm.
optimization, where you deal with lot of documentation in financial institutions, where you can using Gen AI, you can improve the productivity and cut down some of those time that you spent on this documentation work. The other is credit risk analysis. You
Mm.
can have a better credit risk analysis, and because the Gen AI agents can look at data in a holistic way, the credit risk analysis agents can have a holistic view of a
Mm.
person's financial information or history, and provide better credit decision. The other area that I've seen is like fraud and financial crime prevention. That's where more into the investigation side than the detection side.
Mm.
Detection side, we are seeing more still the rule-based platforms where there are defined rules, but the investigation has significantly improved, right? Like because right now, if a human agent is just looking at the investigation part, that human agent has to look at lots and lots of data points, and in their own mind they have to correlate those data points and try to come
Yeah,
for a conclusion.
yeah.
But with Gen AI assistance, the Gen AI agent can first look at those millions of data points and provide a
Ah,
pre-assessment to the agent, right?
yes.
So the
Yeah.
agent can do their job better in a more productive way. The other thing is personalization, right? Like how do you provide a very personalized banking experience to a person or customer? So those are like five broad areas.
Yeah.
I'll tell you like one story where one of our customers, and there's a public case study. It's a British customer, largest British bank, one of the largest British bank called NatWest.
Okay.
So they have implemented like a personalization solution where they've been segmenting their customers and trying to see what their behaviors are in terms of their banking behaviors. What they've seen is there's a cohort of people been paying ATM fees significantly. And this cohort of people has been in a poor neighborhood in UK. What they have done is by personalizing their messages, have sent a message to these users saying, hey, by the way, for last 4 weeks, you've been, spending about £40 of taking money out by paying to ATMs. If you walk, a couple of blocks down, there's a free ATM where you can, take your money out.
Ah,
And through that, for that whole cohort, they managed to save about, £2 million across, several months. So
wow.
that's a really cool case study of personalization. How do you personalize this message? So those are like high ROI cases that takes a bit of time to implement, understand the data, label the data, and things like that. But those are the five broad areas where we as in AWS work with our customers on implementing impactful use cases.
Wow, they are really interesting as well, right? I mean, I didn't realize. I mean, when you categorize into five, categories, I just realized, how many different types of impacts that you can have through Gen AI. I mean, we
Yep,
we've known the impact of AI in these areas across time, but
yep,
specifically how Gen AI, because Gen AI just immediately improves the human journeys, whether it is a customer journey or whether it's an employee journey, right?
mhm,
So, another day we should just, go through all the use cases and, dig deep.
absolutely, absolutely. There are like really fun use case in customer experience side as well. Like we can dive deep into those areas like intent analysis in call centers. It's a like pretty cool use
Mm,
case that
yeah.
we work with called one of the biggest platform provided for financial services called Black Knight. So
Okay.
they improve their call center using intent recognition. So like look, like back in the day, like if you are calling your bank, it goes to like a usual IVR system, and you have to
Yeah.
punch the number, okay, press 5 to do this, press 6 to talk to an agent, etc.
Fun
But
times.
in this improved Gen AI implementation, you just talk to an agent, like feels like human. Hi, I'm Seshikar. I want to check my bank balance and apply for this particular loan. I tried to call last week. I couldn't get to an agent. I tried to open this thing, didn't work out. This agent have like a very
Human
natural
feel.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
human feel, natural conversation. And at the end, the human says, okay, I understand what you're calling about. Let me transfer you to a specialist to understand, to help you.
Which is an
And
actual
then,
human.
yeah, which is an actual human. And then the agent picks up. When the agent picks up, agent will have the whole not the transcript of the call, but the intent of the call,
The
right? The
intent.
Gen AI agent have analyzed all that and have said, okay, this person has called the 5 times, couldn't have that person couldn't achieve the thing that they wanted. This is what you need to do. These are things that they are worried about, that they're concerned about. Like this is how you can help, right? So that way, like they have improved their productivity by like 20%. like in
Wow,
their call
fantastic.
and message. It's pretty cool.
It sounds really exciting, even for customers, right? To be able to have a meaningful conversation like
Yeah,
that. I
absolutely.
mean, if
Yeah,
not for banking, even for, relationship advice.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Nuwan. So let's get into the nitty gritty now about the
Hmm.
investment itself, because after
Yeah.
all, we are, we want to focus on the ROI, right? So can you just talk us through how banks can maximize their ROI? Can we take a look at what are the main cost items involved in Gen AI projects, and maybe even discuss some allocation strategies so that banks have a bit of feel of where should the budgets be allocated?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. So I think you have to capitalize on this current momentum,
Yeah,
especially like when you're trying to convince your leadership, the board, to
exactly.
secure new funding for these initiatives. But by having these kind of use cases, you can like there are at this point you have enough public case studies that shows the advancement or shows the productivity gain that you can achieve by having these kind of use cases, right? So that's already there, so you can convince your leadership, the board, to have that funding. Now the tricky thing is when you have funding and when you have secured funding, where do you allocate that funds, right? If you simply and there's two sides for this, right? You also want to show some quick results and quick
Mm,
wins.
mm,
That's where the quick win use cases matter quite a bit.
yeah.
The document summarization, intelligent document processing, back office process optimizations,
Mm,
customer experience, certain parts of customer experience. Those are like quick win use cases. You can quickly show the ROI to your leadership, and
mm.
and keep the funding stream open, so
Coming
you
in,
can yeah, you can invest on like much more impactful things. So where I have seen like a lot of successful financial institutions and businesses have invested most of their funding is on getting their data in order so they can keep the innovation going, right?
yeah.
What I mean by that is like if you take like US financial institutions, there's like petabytes of data that they acquire about customer data, credit information coming from credit bureaus, alternative data sources, fraud information that's happening for fraud detection, etc. So this is like massive amount of data. And this data, if your legacy financial institution is sitting in like legacy databases, storages, and legacy data formats. So if you have to allocate certain amount of funding to get the data
Mm,
in order to clean this data, and in a future ready format. So in
mm,
today's world, we talk about open data formats. Like there are technologies like Iceberg, like where you can, it doesn't matter where you store the data, like databases store it doesn't matter, but you use an open data format. So you can use that data for different types of technologies. Today when it comes to like, in AWS and Bedrock and other LLM technologies, you can easily use this data in a consumable way. So
right.
that's my advice for banks and financial institutions. Like if you have the funding, like invest on the data side while
Mm,
implementing some of those quick win use cases, so you can really have a 5-year roadmap built for your institution with multiple use cases that goes to production, right? So yeah, I mean we can dig deep into each of those
yeah.
areas.
So interesting that you said about the data aspect.
Right.
So along with the data aspect, what hope do banks that are really entrenched in legacy technology have in implementing generative AI on these longer term projects, where it needs to connect to so many
Right.
systems and really make it like streamline that whole thing. I understand you've been working a lot with the digital native banks who are simply
Mm-hmm.
just unaware of that problem even,
Right.
but I think for
Right.
a majority of the banks that's like one of the biggest headaches, right? So what hope do they have?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Good question. Like, I think we've been privileged to work with some of these digital native banks. So some of these problems are non-existent.
Not problems.
Yeah, but at the same time, even these digital native banks have like 10 years of history, and then when you look at technology, it's like a sliding scale, right? Like
Yeah,
wha- technology changes every 1 year, 2 years time frame. So
yeah.
what was there 10 years ago is now legacy. So, but the other thing is from AWS, like because my team is part of larger financial
Mm,
services group, we work with old banks, like 100 years old,
yeah,
100-year old financial like insurance companies, where
right,
they are still in mainframes, where they are still in like old databases. So, what we've been advising and what we've seen impactful is being use case obsessed, rather than building a platform just for
right,
hypothetical use cases. What
right.
I'll zoom into that. What I mean by that is like, identify those low hanging use cases that are kind of high impactful,
Mm,
and then implement on those use cases and
mm,
go down the line of what kind of data I need for this particular use case. And
yeah,
then modernize that entire life cycle to get that particular workload into production.
yeah,
That will give the biggest ROI, because now you know how to modernize the data side in order to feed that particular workload.
yeah.
One of
And
the like,
perhaps even, sorry,
yeah,
perhaps even when you work on one use case, just the modernizing of that end-to-end use case may just be enough to do two more use cases.
yeah,
Because
absolutely,
you might be able to just use the same data, use the same
yeah.
connections to the systems, etc. Right? So
Absolutely. So
that's
you
a good idea.
basically build a reference architecture of
Mm,
modernizing your platform, which is use case oriented,
yeah,
which is
exactly.
highly impactful.
Yeah.
Highly impactful. Like a real world area that I see is like contact center modernization. That is why I'm saying that is contact centers are somewhat orthogonal to entire, the whole core banking systems, right?
Mm,
So if you want to like invest some time,
yes.
if your bank is running a contact center with, let's say 150 agents or 500 agents with big banks, modernizing that route of providing customer
Yeah.
service or customer experience through a call center will be a really good investment, right?
Mm,
So because all your data is generated by the call center, and
mm,
and then if you summarize that data and if you label that data, if you apply Gen AI for that data, can be used by the contact center agent themselves. So
yeah.
productivity gains are really fast, so you can
Yeah.
show the ROI really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Super. Wow, some great ideas. So, Nuwan, what, in your opinion, are some easier use cases for banks who are still undecided or are seeking more clarity on how to enter this whole Gen AI game is? Like, what are some of the easier use cases that they can start with
Yeah.
in order to, as you mentioned, gain support from the leadership and board of investors, as well as use as the first stepping stone towards a much broader set of
Yeah.
projects.
I think the you have to think about like the entry barrier, right? And you have to get your people on board for the initiative, and 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 we have to address that whole taboo situation where, oh, is Gen AI going to replace my job, right?
Yes.
So you have to like train your workforce to use Gen AI for their productivity improvement.
Mm,
I think that will be the easiest entry point, like providing a simple chatbot to give more information for their daily work. Uh,
mm,
I've been, helping these, banking agents or banking individuals. Like for example, right, like let's talk about a person goes to a bank and then you're talking to an agent at a desk, and now you want to provide a personalized experience to this particular person, rather than looking at five different screens and five different windows to understand this person's financial history. You can have like a one chat interface where the agent can ask few questions and get a lot of information about this particular customer and provide support. In order to implement that interface is super easy, right? With
right.
AWS technologies, we have a tool called Amazon Bedrock, and within Amazon Bedrock, you can create agents. multiple agents, and multiple agents can do multiple things. Some agents can call an API and get some data. Some agents can look at your internal knowledge base and get that information. Mix everything together and provide like a unified summary of information to the human agent. This
Right.
way, the human agent becomes much more intelligent when providing support for the customer, right? So those
Yeah.
are like super easy things that will help your employees to see the value of Gen AI, as
Yeah.
well as your leadership to see, oh, this is something awesome that we need to invest in. So you
Yeah.
can then go ahead and secure that funding and invest that on like cleaning up your data, getting your house in order for bigger use cases.
Yeah, I think that's really important that you use some of the first use cases to first address the insecurities almost
Yep.
of those who are worried for what Gen AI or AI in general can do to their careers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a very important thing
Yep.
to address.
the,
Yeah.
the, the training and development part is also playing a huge role, right? Like right now, I mean, my team is working with a lot of these financial institutions from the technology side, like to enable them on like using some of these tools. Even like when they're building Gen AI applications, like how do you use Gen AI to write code, test,
Mm,
build, and CI/CD workflows, all those things. Like there's whole development aspect for that, and
mm,
we are training these folks to use these tools to be more productive, so you can
mm.
cut down your release cycles, right? So yeah, training and development is super important, and
Yeah.
you should invest in. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow, I think we've covered a lot in a short um, time
Yeah.
span, and a lot of like heavy topics around ROIs and Gen AI and all of that. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for all the inputs and the insights that you shared with
absolutely.
us today. Hope to catch you soon for another chat. And thanks to
Yep.
everyone watching. I hope you had a insightful episode, and see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Take care.